So today we're going to dive into our marriages and talk about the topic of control. So there's such a thing as healthy control, maybe, we'll discover, and unhealthy control. So when you think about control, like why do we control? Like why, if you tend to be a controller type, for me, my wanting to control the outcome and kind of be in charge and have my hands on it was from a place of fear that I didn't realize. Like I was afraid of what was going to happen. I didn't trust what was going to happen, but I knew that I could rely on me. And so I wanted to be in control. And so to some extent, that created a lot of success in business for me. But where it got damaging was in my relationship when I wanted to try and control my spouse. So we're going to talk about 5 ways of unhealthy control. So maybe you don't think you're controlling, but check in and see if you can find any ways that you might be that you didn't realize. So would you want to know if you were controlling? Would you want to know that you were? And if it was hurting your relationship, right, would you want to be aware of it? So I think the easiest way to say one of the ways that we have unhealthy control is we have this thought that if I don't do it, then they're not going to do it, right? And sometimes it's a difference in personalities of partners. So I used to believe like if I didn't do it, then Skylar wouldn't do it, right? So something as simple as taking out the trash. He takes out the trash when it's overflowing, and that's when he believed that the trash should go out. I would take out the trash whenever it's close to being full. And we discovered through some communication and lots of frustration that I would just like go in and do it when it was that full, but it didn't even occur to Skylar that that's what I was expecting him to do when it kind of got full. He thought you're supposed to take the trash out when it's overflowing. And so I would go in and I would just do it and then get frustrated at him unknowingly when he was willing to do it the entire time. So your spouse might have a way of being that has different timing than you do, right? They might think that clothes should be washed at a different time. You know, maybe the laundry isn't done every single day, or that dishes should be put away at a different time, or food should be done in a certain way. And there's differences in your personalities, and sometimes if you haven't communicated those differences, it's creating tension and you're not even knowing it. So one of the ways of unhealthy control is doing it because you think in your head they're never going to do it. Right? Because what that does is for a man, when you just do it anyways and you've asked them to do it, you're like kind of chopping their legs off. Like for me, it was demasculating Skylar when I would do things like that. And another way unhealthy control showed up for me was wanting to avoid future pain. Right? So very early in our relationship, Skylar cheated on me. And it came out 2 weeks before we got married, and I didn't process it in a very good way. I kind of just like shoved it under the rug and didn't want to deal with it. But then every time we were, let's say, at the beach or out dancing or going out for drinks, and there were girls with big boobs out or like had skinny things on, I would try and control his eyes, and I would watch him like a hawk to make sure that he wasn't going to hurt me again. So I was trying to control his actions to avoid past pain that I hadn't dealt with. So that's a way of unhealthy control, because once I dealt with the pain and I dealt with the hurt of being cheated on and being betrayed, I no longer had the need to have to control him because I was in a healthy place. So when you're trying to avoid pain from the past recurring again, that could be a form of unhealthy control, and it just might be a sign that you have some stuff that you get to work through. And for me, like, I know unhealthy control is when I'm trying to dive into a situation so that I can feel safe and secure. So like oftentimes I will go out of my lane. So I believe there's 3 lanes in life: your lane, their lane, and God's lane. And oftentimes I'm over in God's lane, I'm over in Skylar's lane, and I'm doing things that are their business to do, that literally I have no business interfering with. I kept having, as I stepped out of our restoration company, over and over again, I had to say, okay, I'm not going to make any comments or any suggestions unless I'm the one that's actually going to go execute. Like, I'm no longer going to go in your lane when it comes to our business and tell you what to do or tell you how I think it should be done, unless I'm actually going to be the one to go execute. And so, because I felt like if I gave my opinion, I felt safe and I felt secure and I felt like I had a little bit more control. And as I stepped out of our company, what I realized was that I didn't have control of anything, right? I had perceived control. So we're a little bit delusional when we think we have, like, literally we don't know if we are going to die tomorrow. We don't know if our spouse is going to cheat on us tomorrow. We do not know if we are going to get sick tomorrow. Like, we have no clue what's going to happen in life. Like, only the Lord knows. So you actually don't have it in control anyways, but what you have is perceived control, where you think, okay, if I can just worry about this enough, right? Sometimes we use worry to try and control. If I can worry about this enough, then I'll feel better about it, right? But all that is it's delusional. Like, that's perceived control. There's no such thing as control over another person, yet we try, right? Another way you know you might be in have unhealthy control in your relationship is if you say the statement, well, my way's better. Like, I know better, right? I often, especially in my prior relationship to Skylar, I knew better about everything. And I let my ex know all the time that he was not doing it right and not doing it the correct way. And I would correct him, or I would ask him to do it and then I would do it over, or I just wouldn't rely on him at all and I would just go do it myself. And looking back, like, how would I feel if someone treated me like that, right? If you're the spouse that always knows better, right? You constantly know better about everything, about parenting, about food, about dishes, about all this stuff. Like, how do you think your partner feels on the other side of that? Like, do you think they want to bring stuff to you and share stuff with you when you're always going to know better? Like, I know. I created a very damaging situation when I showed up that way. And sometimes the fifth way, if you say to yourself, the fifth way that you know you might be in unhealthy control is when you say, well, I'm just trying to help, right? And maybe you actually are really trying to help. But when you help from this self-righteous place that you know better and you know best, it's often not the help that your spouse needs. So, like, your husband got along and, like, lived life and ate and fed himself and got dressed and ran his business or went to work for years before he met you, and he survived just fine. But all of a sudden, now you're here and you think you know how to live his life. Like, he is a unique and different and special person. And so when I was able to create separation from trying to help, what we call that in our relationship is unsolicited advice. So now when I want to go give unsolicited advice, I ask, hey, are you open to some unsolicited advice? And Skylar can say yes, or he can say no. But that keeps me from always trying to go in his lane and fix his problems. He's the one that has to deal with it. And so I want him to, like, have the space to deal with it how he would want to. And so as I grew in my maturity, I stayed in my lane by asking about the unsolicited advice. And I know you're trying to help and it's coming from a great place, but just know it could be an unhealthy control pattern that you have if you hear yourself saying that to yourself. So let me know, which of the 5 do you resonated most with you? And if you got any value out of this video and you see your friend kind of doing these things, share that with them. Send me a comment below, hit the like button, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe below.